come to the second part of our session, and I would like to invite Nico Rose and Jürgen Nagler to the stage. A fun fact is that we end up with 3 Germans on the stage, although we are not necessarily known to be particularly funny, rather serious. But let's make a positive impact and a positive change. Happiness made in Germany. So welcome to the stage, the two of you. Let me quickly introduce the two of you one by one. Dr. Nico Rose is a psychologist. He knows a lot about organizational development, talent acquisition, HR, and he studied with Martin Seligman, professor from Pennsylvania University, who is known as the father of positive psychology, the science of happiness and well-being. And he recently left his job in the private sector with Bertelsmann, a huge media company, to become a professor and unleash the potential of his students. And he's known as one of the leading experts in positive psychology and positive business in Germany. Thank you very much for coming. Then we have Jürgen Nagler. He's the co-founder of the United Nations Transformation Network and a happiness researcher based in Bhutan. Jürgen has been working with the UN for the last 10 years. But interestingly, as I found out last night, he was also working in the private sector before. He was working many years in IT with Siemens, and a personal experience changed his life and made him get very interested in sustainability and happiness. And we are coming there in a second. To start with, I would like to invite the two of you for a short quiz. And your task will be to respond spontaneously to a couple of statements related to our session's theme.
Strong part of Germans, being spontaneous.
In max 1 word or sentence. Let's start with Nico. In my view, happiness is?
Playing with my children.
A positive truth about myself
is that I very much like heavy metal, and I get a lot of happiness from hearing heavy metal.
Like Dominic Douster, as I found out last night. Something I typically wouldn't share in public about myself.
Heavy metal. No, it's been a 10-year journey for me to becoming the person that I am today, being happy, finding out and learning about positive psychology. There was a point in my life where this was deeply the other way around, so I had a kind of burnout when I was in my 30s, and yeah, I'm much happier today. I'm glad to be here.
A value that drives me.
Passion.
My biggest strength?
Passion. Spontaneous.
If I was tasked to make the world more beautiful, I would
teach social entrepreneurship to children.
One insight about happiness everyone in this room should know.
Other people matter.
Thank you. Jürgen, now it's your turn.
All right.
A positive truth about myself.
I'm compassionate.
Mm-hmm. What I love about my life in Bhutan
is the peaceful surroundings and people.
The reason why I decided to leave the corporate sector and join the United Nations.
To make a positive difference for the world.
A value that drives me?
Compassion.
If I was the CEO of the Bill Gates Foundation, I would
invest into mindset shift.
What comes to mind when I think of happiness?
Gratitude.
And the last one, to get to a more sustainable world, a world of 3 zeros, we need to
shift the global mindset.
Thank you very much. Now let's get to the meta level of this session. We all have listened to these individual examples, what got them motivated. Often it's an experience in Bangladesh, like it was also in my case. But before we get there, I would like to get a better understanding of you, Nico. From a psychological point of view, what is happiness?
Well, so I've been learning positive psychology with Martin Seligman, and oftentimes positive psychology is kind of reduced to this happiness, and sometimes people say it's all about smiling all the time and wearing rose-colored glasses, while positive psychologists today would say flourishing is defined by an acronym that's PERMA, P-E-R-M-A. So the first one is really about positive emotions, gratitude, happiness, satisfaction. E is engagement, so finding something that you really care about and that you engage with and that you give your time and resources to. R is about the relationships, and I like that it's pretty much in the middle of the PERMA, so it's about finding fulfilling relationships in your personal life, but obviously also in your professional life. M is about meaning and purpose and finding something that you really deeply care about. And A is accomplishment, because we all want to be successful in our own domain of success. And lately we've also been adding another letter to the PERMA, which is about kind of integrating the body, because a happy body kind of contributes, a healthy body contributes to having a happy mind. So that's PERMA and then including the body.
P, positive emotion. We know that do it with joy is the seventh principle, and I would even make the point that it's the most important principle of it. It all starts with the joy. Can you explain a bit what's the role of positive emotions for the human brain and mind?
Yes, so typically when people are asked what are positive emotions about, they say, well, it feels good. But evolution actually doesn't really care a lot about feel-good management. So there's a very distinctive evolutional purpose to positive emotion, and there's a very famous researcher in the US named Barbara Fredrickson, and she has posited this broaden and build theory of positive emotions. What she says is that positive emotions kind of broaden our mindset. It broadens our view on the physical level, but it also broadens our view on the mental level. So if we are experiencing positive emotions, we become more creative, we become more prone to inviting the future into our lives, whereas negative emotions typically help us to protect ourselves, but they make us small, and they also make us small mentally. So happiness and gratitude and satisfaction is really about broadening our mind and solving problems, and this is the true purpose of happiness.
And what's the link between happiness and success?
Well, there's a lot of research out there that shows that actually being successful makes you happy. There's one correlation, but it also works on the other side. So actually being happy helps you being successful in many different angles of your life.
A lot of examples.
There's a very nice quote by Sir Richard Branson, the founder of the Virgin Enterprise, and he's often quoted by saying, so people think I'm happy and wealthy and successful and connected because I'm successful. And he says, no, it's the other way around. I am successful because I was happy before I even started being successful. So I think that's a lot of truth in that.
A last one for you before we shift to Jürgen. Purpose, as you said, is a driver of happiness. It's important to find purpose and meaning in life. But how to find your purpose if you have not yet been to Bangladesh?
Well, I have taken lots of long travels into research papers, not to Bangladesh, and actually finding something that you care about and finding some group of other people that you really care about is one big part of the success. It's a very funny coincidence that, especially in Germany, a lot of Western companies, a lot of big corporations now start to carry out these sense of purpose projects. So there's companies that have been around for 100 years, 180 years, and suddenly they have lost their purpose and they are trying to rediscover this purpose. And this is only about finding out who you can help, who you can contribute to. It's about your customers, it's about the wider group of constituents that you're serving as a company. And this is truly the link from your individual happiness, from your individual success to having an impact on other people's lives. And that's no big news, but research is on that right now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Jürgen,
Yes.
We learned that positive emotions trigger your mind, you get more solution-oriented, but I know from our conversation last night, in your case, it was not a positive emotion, but rather almost a traumatic experience that changed your life.
True.
Could you please share what happened?
Sure. It's true. I mean, as you rightly said, I was working for a very large company in Europe, was following the path of only making money, which was at that time my purpose, I felt. However, then I experienced kind of a near-death experience, I guess, something life-threatening when I was driving my motorbike on a between city road in France. I mean, I had a very heavy collision, so a very bad accident, which took me out of my comfort zone, I would say, and forced me to reflect on the meaning of life, the meaning of my life. Do I really just want to follow making money? And very quickly later, I realized when I was sitting in the office and just making some sales numbers that it feels like I'm selling my lifetime for money. And that feeling was not proper. It was no longer doing it for me. So it was much more difficult to find the answer. It was a 10-year journey where I experimented with many different things. But by hindsight, I must say I'm very grateful for even this life-changing, traumatic experience. So I think it's also good that if we, in these challenges, in disasters, in crisis, we try to go through it and find what we can learn from it.
Now you are a happiness researcher in Bhutan. Can you share a bit your experience in Bhutan? What's so special about Bhutan and happiness?
I mean, first of all, I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be currently living in Bhutan. I mean, most people might not know where it is. It's really a small, peaceful country in the Himalayas, nestled between India and China. So, small country between two giants. And it is unique because it's one of the leading examples of going beyond GDP. Professor Yunus in his earlier critique was spot on. The economic model that we have been using for so long is broken. So we know very well that only measuring in monetary terms, measuring profit and GDP doesn't do it. But we have to be better in becoming visionary, charting positive visions and telling positive stories. And Bhutan is one of these few examples around the world. It was the former king, His Majesty the Fourth King, was asked by a journalist, so what's the GDP of your country? And it was tiny. So he avoided the question and said, I'm not interested in the GDP, I'm interested in the gross national happiness of my people. So he said G and H is more important than GDP. So living in that country is allowing me to really experience it, rather from a mental, theoretic perspective. It's so important. Immersion is so important. So for many other people, it has been the Bangladesh bug. I think there's a Bhutan bug and many other positive bugs. Bhutan is also unique because it's the only climate-neutral country in the world. So all our countries where we come from can take a lot of inspiration to protect the environment and climate. So this is why I'm grateful to be there.
Currently you are working on an exciting PhD. You are looking into the role of mindsets when it comes to human development. And I think that that's an exciting question because, as Professor Yunus said, money is not the problem. There's a huge amount of wealth in the world. So if money is not the problem, what's the role of mindset with regard to overcoming the global challenges of our time?
I mean, firstly, in my research I have found out, and the topic is not very well researched, it's upcoming now, it has shown that mindsets are incredibly powerful. We become what we think. So, and most of this thinking that we do is unconscious. So we are basically creating our lives from a large shadow. So, firstly, to reflect each of us to say, what is my mindset? Can be a very good starting point for personal development and success. So I think it's an invitation for us to become also introspective. I mean, not just following the path of materialism, of consumerism, but connecting the heart with the mind to see what is our purpose and how we can achieve that.
To conclude this session, so based on the individual experience that you heard and based on the research that you are doing, what is your recommendation how to move to more happiness and a more sustainable world? Let's start with Nico.
Well, first for me it was becoming a father in the first place. Because similar as Jürgen, I was doing big business when I was younger, and basically I was stuck in my own for most of the time, so I really cared only about myself. And then I first met the love of my life, my woman now, and now we have 2 beautiful children, and that really helped me to see that there's other people out there. And
so get children.
Get children, yeah. And immediately when you have children, you get a broader outlook on what is important in your life, and suddenly you start thinking about the future generations. And so for me, my personal journey was becoming a father, and sometimes it starts with these very small steps. So if you don't have children yet, I highly encourage you to do so. It's a good start.
Thank you very much. And what is your recommendation for us, how to get to a more happy and more sustainable world, Jürgen?
For all of us to play a role in this paradigm shift from an economic, GDP, materialistic driven world towards one which makes progress on the SDGs, as well as a well-being approach.
Well-being approach, and that's the perfect bridge for the wrap-up. So what we learned, happiness is subjective well-being, but it's not enough to be just happy yourself. It's about sharing, about positive relationship, about finding purpose in life. And what I took from the 2 of you, but also from the other examples that we heard, is to go for that journey to Bangladesh, or that inner journey, yes. Finding your purpose and getting into the pathway of social business can help us contribute to a more sustainable world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such an insightful discussions around